Hi, I'm Ed Gibson, Director, Forensic Technology Services Division, PricewaterhouseCoopers. Today we have with us Shane Sims, former FBI agent, currently a Director at PricewaterhouseCoopers in our Forensic Technology section, as well as Kim Peretti, former trial attorney, Computer Crime Intellectual Property Section, Department of Justice, and also a Director in our Cybersecurity Division, Forensic Technology here at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Hello. Shane, I'm going to ask you a few questions about your activities at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and particularly as it pertains to cybercrime and cyber intrusions. What are a couple of the things that you see, not only based on your prior experience as a business owner, FBI agent, but currently your experience in PwC? What are a couple of the things that are facing companies today in the cyber arena?
Good question, Ed. I think there's a couple of defining factors as it relates to that question. What we're seeing today and over the last few years is that cyber threat groups are much more advanced. They're much more targeted in their approach. So they're actually identifying specific industries or specific organizations within an industry to target for attack. They're using custom techniques and custom software that avoid detection by traditional signature-based security solutions. So it's really making things difficult for organizations out there today. And these groups they're not using methods they used 10 years ago, which is to try to beat down the doors of external-facing servers. So they're targeting insiders. They know that security is not as robust on the user systems. So if they can find a vulnerability on a user system, they're going to try to exploit that first. And that usually comes in the form of an email threat. So an email that looks legit but has a bad link or a bad attachment, it causes the insider to open it or click it, and then all of a sudden the bad guys have remote access to the network.
Shane, I understand that you have quite an expertise in advanced persistent threats and finding those inside companies. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is APT?
Yeah, APT, the acronym for Advanced Persistent Threat, I think means different things to different people, and it was originally coined to kind of be the catch-all for state-sponsored cyber attacks, so foreign intelligence services trying to penetrate the networks of other companies in different countries. But from my perspective, APT is it's any computer or network intrusion that is advanced enough to avoid detection by the methods used by that individual company, whether it's a criminal group or a state-sponsored group.
Well, when we talk about advanced persistent threats, and clearly that it would indicate that something has happened inside the company's infrastructure for some period of time. Does that mean that a CIO or CISO simply has not done his or her job?
Absolutely not. I think CISOs and CIOs are doing a fantastic job. I think the thing that's lacking at most organizations from my perspective and what I've seen over the last 25 years is they're not seeded with the right human resources or the right financial resources. And those two elements could completely change the game for any given organization.
Of course, that's changed in the last 12 to 18 months with the compromises that we're hearing about virtually every day. What can a company do to help protect themselves?
Yes, it's becoming more and more difficult. How do you prevent a targeted attack? How do you prevent APT? And maybe it requires a kind of a philosophical shift from prevention-centric to earlier detection. So how can you leverage all those investments over the past decade in security and monitoring and reapply them in a way and tune them in a way that you could actually detect one of these network intrusions in minutes to hours instead of months to years? Because what we've seen historically from all these investigations is that criminal groups will often maintain access to an environment for anywhere from months up to a year, year and a half. But state-sponsored groups are typically in the environments before detection anywhere from 2 to 4 years.
Shane, I know that you've had considerable success in determining when a company has been compromised through APT or otherwise. What do we see on the landscape or on the horizon in the next year, 2 years, or 3 years that companies will be facing?
I think the threat landscape will continue to evolve and adapt to any security strategy that any company throws out there. So the key is just to assume, and from my perspective, assume you're in a state of compromise all the time, every day. Take advantage of every little event, every little incident that crops up to learn from it, to gather security threat intelligence that you can reapply across the environment to increase security.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kim, are companies well prepared to respond to advanced cyber threats?
Ed, they're really not at this point, and you heard Shane sort of explain the advanced cyber threat environment that many organizations are facing right now, and that environment is really causing the need to have a shift in how companies respond to cyber threats. It's not what was the typical case 5 to 10 years ago, where there would be a solo hacker attacking a system and the company could respond with a technical fix to a technical problem. These attacks nowadays go undetected. They maintain access for a long period of time. You have to be prepared to respond over time and with an increasing number of services. There might be breach notification services or customer call center fraud mitigation services. You may need to employ someone to do ongoing threat monitoring to see if the particular organization, criminal organization, is continuing to attack your system. There could be incident response services. There could be forensic investigation services. So companies need to be prepared to respond with a broader array of services than just a technical fix for a technical problem.
Kim, you've had considerable experience not only as a prosecutor as well as a lawyer in private practice, and now your considerable success and experience here at PwC. What would you recommend to companies that they do? What kind of steps can they take to help protect their own infrastructures?
Well, what I would say, keeping to the incident response area, is the number one thing is to plan. You can't respond effectively unless you've planned effectively. So draft an information response plan, similar to what an organization would do in planning for an earthquake or an avian flu virus. Plan for a cyber attack, draft a plan, train your employees on how that plan works, and test the plan to ensure that it's effective. That's one thing that a company can do to be prepared to respond. Another thing is, if you find yourself in the crisis situation, attack it like a crisis and understand that it is a crisis. Have someone that takes notes at every critical business juncture meeting, because you could be asked to be held accountable for every decision-making process in that crisis situation. Another thing is to bring in the experts, whether it's legal advice or forensic consultants. Ensure that you have the people that can respond appropriately, that are prepared to respond to a crisis situation. Those are a couple steps that a company can take.
Kim, of course, we're all familiar with companies having practice on their physical security measures. Are you suggesting then that many companies don't have in place a practice session for cyber compromises?
Absolutely. Sometimes we are seeing more organizations have a particular plan in place, but often it's a plan that they've taken from a different business unit and or from a different organization or found it on the internet, and they haven't crafted it for their particular set of threat factors that they may face. And they haven't trained their employees on it, nor have they tested it appropriately.
Kim, what measures or do you consider that IT people or non-IT people inside companies are well prepared for a cyber breach?
No, what we're seeing is that cybersecurity and cybercrime is no longer just an IT issue. And non-IT business leaders and management within the organization need to be more informed of these issues. And there's two things that can happen. First, we're not seeing the issues appropriately raised and elevated and escalated at the appropriate time outside the IT department. So non-IT management needs to get involved in crafting policies so that those issues get properly elevated. And secondly, the non-IT business leaders that do hear of these problems need to take them seriously and not just think of them as something that needs to be quickly solved and resolved by the IT folks. These are serious issues that have significant consequences to organizations.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Shane. That concludes our message today from Kim Preddy and Shane Sims. And again, I'm Ed Gibson, Forensic Technology Services, PricewaterhouseCoopers.